and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I am going to be discussing the, I believe, 1983 film, The Big Chill. This stars a lot of people. Glenn Close is in this. Jeff Goldblum's in this. Tom Berenger's in this. Kevin Kline. Mary Kate Place. JoBeth Williams. Did I say Tom Berenger? I'm not sure if I... Well, he's in it too. He plays Sam Weber, a TV detective on a hit show called J.T. Lancer, if memory serves. But anyways, what this is about quickly is a group of friends, the actors portraying the characters, whose names I just recited. They are forced to get back together with their old college friends as the result of one of them, an individual by the name of Alex. He commits suicide, and that's how the movie kicks off. They end up at his funeral. Interesting side note is apparently the body of Alex was played by Kevin Costner. So, which is kind of funny because in the movie... Oh, Meg Tilly's in it too. She plays Alex's girlfriend, and so she's at the funeral, of course, too. And she ends up kicking off a relationship with William Hurt because she says he reminds her of Alex. And I always thought that William Hurt and Kevin Costner could be related. They look sort of alike, kind of. So it's funny that Kevin Costner plays her dead boyfriend and then William Hurt plays her new boyfriend. And they do look like they could be brothers-ish. But anyways, yeah, this movie... What I like most about this movie is it's at that point in the 80s where the early 80s had released such monumentally important, emotionally charged films like this or Children of a Lesser God, you know. And what I like about it is that I believe their friendships and I believe these characters and that I believe their grief, and they all end up back at Glenn Close and Kevin Kline's place, and they just kind of catch up because they haven't seen each other in a while, and they lost touch with their friend Alex, who committed suicide about 5 years prior. And I like how every time I have this movie on, it kind of feels like home, but I'm not entirely sure if I should continue because I believe my dog is on his way in. And I'm waiting for him to make an appearance. And here he is. Hey, bud. What are you doing? Would you like to go out? Is that what you would like to do? We'll have to pause this while I let my dog out. Okay, my apologies. I am now back. So another thing that I love about this movie, I think that, I don't know if I mentioned prior to me having to let my dog out of whether or not how this movie feels like home. Well, one of my favorite things about this movie is just how I feel like I'm in the room with them. Like, for example, the scene I always think about is the dinner scene where Glenn Close points out that Alex should be here. And it's that scene that I always think of first when I think of this movie because I feel like I'm in the room. These characters are grounded in reality. They're all successful in whatever fields they've chosen. Jeff Goldblum's a writer. Kevin Kline's some sort of shoe magnet, running shoe entrepreneur. And they've all done, like Tom Berenger's a successful TV private eye on a show like Magnum. I think it's J.T. Lancer again. And yet they're not so successful that I can't relate to them. They're successful lawyers, like I said, writers and business owners. So everybody in this is so grounded in reality that you can't help but kind of feel like there's something here for you. Because we've all found ourselves at that dinner scene where you're getting together because somebody's passed away and you're attempting to celebrate their life. But inevitably it comes up where you feel the loss. And she even points out that there should be a place set for him at the table. And I get that because, again, this movie is very relatable as far as how the characters are dealing with the grief behind losing their friend. And what else did I want to say about this that I absolutely loved? Oh, yes, that's right. The other thing, too, this movie had a fairly big impact on television at the time. There was a show called Hometown that was directly, loosely inspired by this film. It didn't last one season. I think it went up in 85 and it came down in 85. I think only like 7 or 8 episodes aired. I remember being a little kid and seeing the promo for it. Of course, at that point, not having any idea that it would be related to some movie that was way over my head. But I do remember seeing the promos for it. But this movie then went on to influence the much better known 30-something. Anybody who's in my age group or even possibly 5, 6 years younger will remember the fairly decent run. I think it was on for 4 seasons. 30-something, it wasn't really my show because, of course, I was a little young for it, but what I liked about 30-something was that, again, as I got older and I ended up seeing the odd episode, I dated a girl who, as a matter of fact, who was obsessed with that show. So I ended up seeing a handful of them while I was dating her, and I got the exact same vibe from The Big Chill that I did from that I did from this. It's honest, and it's pure, and it's just people living their lives in the best way they know how. And I love that. I just love how a part of this I feel. And I think the most tragic part about this movie would be the end when Sam and Nick, Tom Berenger's character and William Hurt's character, they kind of butt heads over how Nick says that we never really knew Alex. We lost touch with him because we only knew him intensely and intimately for the short period of time while we were all in college together. But overall, we never really knew him and we never knew what was going on inside of him. So the fact that he drifted off and inevitably committed suicide was something that was beyond their control. And he goes on to say, like, maybe we never knew him. Maybe we were never quite as connected. And then Tom Berenger's character, Sam, jumps in and says, no, that's ridiculous. Like, I loved all of you back then as much as I love you now. And this Alex thing has rocked me. So don't say that we only mattered because we were kids in college, because that's just not true. And it almost torpedoes The Weeknd, but it doesn't, thankfully, because neither character are looking to win the argument. They're just both hurting, and it's kind of coming out sideways. And again, that's very relatable because I've been on both sides of that, where when somebody's passed on, I've said something like, yeah, but it couldn't be that much of a surprise because we never really knew him in the first place. But then on the flip side of that coin, I've known other people that have passed away who I knew really well and who, like, it wasn't so much because I knew them in that moment. I mean, I lost touch with them, of course, as the years rolled on, but that didn't change the fact that when I heard about them passing, that it didn't have a colossal impact on me emotionally at that point. Just because, again, I hadn't seen them in 10 years or whatever. So I like how, again, I can relate to this movie in such a epically emotional way that, I mean, this movie's always... I hope that this movie lasts. I hope that people will never let this movie go. Not just because the soundtrack was fun. That was the thing I remember most about this movie was when I was a kid, the fucking soundtrack was selling like crazy. Everywhere I went, I didn't even know what The Big Chill was. I thought it was like the name of the band. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. A bunch of like middle-aged people, you know, like sitting on the cover because it's the poster from the movie. I'm like, that's the weirdest band I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, I hope that this movie will always sort of remain some sort of touchstone point for really well-made, emotionally charged films. Because this just nails it. The characters, like I said, they're believable, they're layered, they're flawed. They're interacting with each other based on old memories, they're making new memories, and they're rekindling lost romances between them, and everything is just so honestly human. I just love that. And I think that's where I'm going to stop. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Well, I said pretty much nothing. Oh, fuck, I wasted your time for almost 9 minutes while I discussed the kick-ass 1983 film, The Big Chill. Like always, if you like this review, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. Even if you hate this review and you think I ramble, just help somebody carry their bags to their car or some shit the next time you're at the grocery store. Hold a door for somebody or tell somebody they look good. Don't lie to them. But if you like somebody's hair, tell them their hair kicks ass. And like always, please don't forget that the world is so much more fun because you're here. You aren't quite as alone as you feel, or if you do feel that alone, know that you're not the only person feeling that way because, fuck, from day to day, I always feel like I'm drowning. That's it. So, yeah. Have a good night.